morning, this is Jersey Small Engine Repair. We have a Harbor Freight Predator 223 power washer that we are going to do a carburetor change on today. Carburetor was purchased off of Amazon. We'll leave the links below, and let's get to it. All right, so we have a Harbor Freight 223 pressure washer. Customer states it will not run. Gasoline has been left in it for over a year. Usually in this situation, you can clean out the carburetor, but we purchased one off of Amazon. It's a complete kit with carburetor, gasket, fuel lines, and air filter. We're gonna open this up, see what we got, and get the fluids drained out of this and get started. All right, first thing that we're gonna get doing is we are gonna drain all the fluids out of the pressure washer. We're gonna use my Harbor Freight fluid extractor right here. It makes the situation way more safe so nothing explodes and no fires are made. Just start with the gas. All right, now that all the gas is drained out, we're gonna switch over to the oil side. Turn right here. Most of these Harbor Freight engines have a oil fill on both sides and a drain on both sides. If you do not have a tool to suck the oil out from here, just take that out with a 10mm, put a drain pan underneath of it, and let the fluid ride out. All right, this is the carburetor kit that we purchased off of Amazon for the 223 Predator power washer. Let's see what we got here. We got fuel line, choke lever, carburetor, fuel shutoff, and an assortment of different gaskets. Now, the one that I purchased off of Amazon came with a jet kit. So it has a variety of different size jets. Once you start the machine up, if you notice it's not running properly, you can increase or decrease the jet size. This is not necessary. This is an extra purchase. Usually you can just slap the carburetor right on there and the jetting is correct if you matched it up to the right cc's of the engine when purchasing the carburetor. All right, just a quick recap. We took all the gasoline out of it. We drained all the oil. We unboxed our carburetor kit, went through everything that we have. Now we're gonna start actually removing the carburetor. Two 10mm bolts. They come off pretty quickly. We want to remove the air filter and air filter box first, and we'll get started on it. Shouldn't take too long. First step is we're going to remove the air filter box. Remove the air filter. I usually put all the miscellaneous pieces right back into the air filter box so you don't lose them. Air filter is pretty clean. And we have two 10mm that hold the air filter box on. Now, usually by moving the choke back a little bit, applying pressure forward, the entire thing is removed. You can keep the vacuum line attached and just set it up here. All right, so we're gonna start with first removing the gasket. We'll set that to the side. Take note that this is the thicker metal gasket. It's hard. Then you have the linkage coming from the governor over to the throttle. Typically when you start to pull this out, you can get enough room to just pull this up, but we have to remove the gas line first. This is held in by a clamp. They're typically a little annoying to get to, but if you go in there with a pair of needle nose pliers, you can usually wedge it out pretty simple. All right, so we're gonna remove the fuel line. First thing we're gonna do is squeeze the little clamp together, push up. Once you have the clamp out of the way, you can take a flathead screwdriver and slowly start working it till you could pull it up. Pop the gas line off. As you're pulling the carburetor out, we could push the throttle open a little bit, push the throttle linkage back, and pull up, and it all disconnects. All right, we're getting ready to put the carburetor back on. Well, I'm going to inspect the fuel line. We see that the fuel line is still really soft. It's not brittle. There's no debris in it. I know that I have clear flow coming from the bottom of the tank into here. All right, so we're getting ready to put the carburetor on. We have our first gasket. So we're going to come over and we're going to find the gasket that matches it. Pretty simple. That one fits right onto there. So we're going to slide this one off. Put that gasket on. Do your best not to rip it. Sometimes they're a little tight. Sometimes if you give the bolts a little squeeze in, it makes it a little bit easier. Then we can take the brand new carburetor. We want to put it back on the same way that we took it off. Start threading it on. Then we're going to come over with the linkage from the governor. You'll feel as you push back, slides right down in there. Then we have our little spring that's going to go into the hole right there. As we're sliding it back, try to aim the fuel line right into it. We could take our needle nose pliers and slowly shimmy the fuel line back on. Take our clamp. Always want to make sure that the fuel line is as far down as you can get it onto the inlet of the carburetor. Now we have the old solid gasket that came off, and then we have the new one. If you look at them closely, the shape on the inside, it's pretty easy to match it up with the shape on the carburetor so we're not blocking any of the ports. If you see right there, we still have the primer port exposed and that one right there. Don't forget, before you put anything else back together, that we want to drop in our choke lever. This sits right on top of the carburetor and falls right into that little slot. When you attach the air box, a little piece of metal sits on top of that and stops it from coming off. All right, now we can continue reattaching the air box. Make sure it's clean. Remember, this step is easier if you take both the gas and the choke and put them into the on position. There is a small vacuum line. If you line it up to the little hole into the intake, Slides right on. Just make sure that it's pushed all the way into the little boot on the intake box. Reinstall both 10mm bolts. I'm using my Milwaukee angle. This thing does have enough power to absolutely strip out the bolts. When you guys do this, please just understand you only need to get them about hand tight. Snug them up. Air filter goes back on. Push it down, make sure it fits in there real nice. There's a little rubber boot on the bottom. You just want to make sure it's sealed. Wing nut goes on top of the air filter. Again, you don't have to go crazy tight with it. Air filter box drops on. Air filter box nut right on top of it. Now we're going to continue with removing the spark plug, putting oil, gasoline back in it, and then firing it up for the first time. All right, we're going to remove the spark plug. Take a look at that plug. Not bad at all. So in this case, it is a generic Chinese spark plug. So I probably will replace this with something a little bit better. But judging from the look of it, there isn't too much debris or carbon buildup on this plug at all. Let's see if we can find a better one. If your kit does not come with a replacement spark plug after you remove it, you want to line it up when you purchase the new one. Typically, they will have a size right on the side of it. You could put that right into your Google search and find the one that fits. Always match them up. Make sure that it's not going to go into the engine any further than the old one. The nut size is the same, and the spark plug is the same length, and that the crush washer is in good condition and not stuck up on the threads. And then we just install it. All right, sometimes it could be a little difficult getting this started. It is kind of deep down in there. You just kind of want to feel around, get the thread started on it. Once you know the threads are in, you can come back with your wrench. Now, you don't have to go crazy tight with the spark plug, just nice and snug. There you go. Put the spark plug boot back on. Make sure you get that good click. There you go. She's on there nice and tight. Now we can start filling it with oil. All right, so refilling these small engines with oil can be a little bit difficult sometimes. The oil fill is always in a difficult area to reach with your typical funnel. You can purchase one from Harbor Freight, Amazon, that has a little tube on the end of it. I made mine, but these are pretty cheap. I recommend always getting one of these. It just makes it way easier to get the oil in. Set it down right into there. And we can start filling it up with oil. All right, so oil level on these are pretty easy to find. Usually down here when you fill it up, if you can see right there, I accidentally overfilled it a little bit, so the excess is pouring out. If you look at the dipstick, full is pretty much all the way to it is pouring out. So that's just the easiest way to determine on this. Wait until the oil is done draining out. We could plug this back in. Now this is for this engine specifically for filling it. I recommend that you always go online and find out the exact amount of oil that your engine is supposed to hold. Overfilling the oil on a small engine can cause severe damage to the engine because the oil will not be lubricating it properly. As we get Angel just to top it off with some gas, I'll come over here and show you. I already have the hose hooked up to it. The water's turned on. I have the power washer hose coming out. I have no gun hooked to it and just a rock holding down the weight so it doesn't blow away. I typically do this when I first start them up after any type of work. It has less pressure on the pump and it's just easy to determine if there's any issues with it running. Once we know that it's running properly, we'll shut off the engine, we'll hook the gun back up, and we'll make sure that we're getting the proper pressure and everything's working right. All right, so if you want to come down here, we'll show you how to get this thing started back up for the first time. We're going to make sure that we put the choke all the way into the start position. We're going to make sure that the fuel is on and that the on switch is on for the machine. And we're going to come on over, give it a couple pulls, and see what we got. We got plenty of pressure coming out the end of the hose. We're going to let the machine warm up for a little while. We'll shut it back off and then we'll hook the gun up to it and make sure that the pump is working properly, that the pressure unload valve is engaging when we're not using the hose. Alright, so we got the engine nice and warmed up. When the customer dropped off this power washer, they did not drop off a hose or the wand with it. So we had to improvise and use one of our own. So we're going to fire it up right now and make sure that the pressure on load valve is working. And then we'll show you that we're getting pressure out of the wand over there. So let's go ahead and hit the switch, give it a pull. I'll take the camera and I'll let my buddy Dylan over here show you that you're getting plenty of pressure. He's going to get a little wet because the rubber O-ring in my hose is non-existent anymore. As we're holding it down, you can tell the engine is not surging. It's got great power. We got great pressure. Now you can tell when he lets go of the gun that the pressure on load valve is kicking on and we're not building up too much pressure. All right, thank you guys.